It's a good idea to have a Finder folder that contains all of the project folders for a given purpose. So whenever you start a new project, you add a new folder to that directory in the Finder. So let's say that I wanted to do a new book review for my blog. I would start by accessing the folder in which I do all my book reviews for my blog. So using Launchbar, of course, I would type the abbreviation for it, book review, and there, bang. So that didn't take very long. So then I would add a new folder for the book review. So let's say that I wanted to review the book called Redirect by Timothy Wilson. So here we go, Redirect by Timothy Wilson using Text Expander. So now I've got myself a project folder, but where are the files? Okay, so what you want to do then is access a folder that contains essentially all the templates for your composition projects. Because here I'm illustrating composition projects. So let's get a new tab here. Command T to get a new tab. And then I will access my composition templates, once again using Launchbar. Notice that this folder contains a whole bunch of template files. I'm going to explain them all to you in a moment. And I will simply drag and drop them here. Okay. So now I have myself a starting point for the new project. Now I would need to rename these template files so that they apply to this particular project. So using the arrow key, command up arrow, I'll go to this to the folder name. And now I want to rename all of these files. So what I'm going to do here is I'm going to use Name Mangler, and I'm going to do a find and replace on all of these files. So I'm going to find the dash symbol and replace that with dash, and notice this is the project name. Okay, so give ourselves some room here. I'm going to grab all of these files and folders, and I've dragged and dropped them here so I can do a batch rename. Click on the rename button. Okay, there we go. Go to the Finder here, and you can see that all of the files have been renamed. The folders have not been renamed, but that's okay. So the advantage of renaming all of these files is that I will be able to quickly access them using Launchbar once it has learned the directory. Okay. Now the naming conventions for these files here, you might think, well, this is a little bit redundant. Why is he doing this? The reason is that when I'm in the Finder or in the source application, I want to be able to quickly navigate to the files, and I've got one file per type of file. So if I want to get to my elements file, and I'll tell you what that is, then I can quickly access it, right? Or I want to get to my outline, well, I can access it by typing. Remember, you don't want to use the mouse. Now, different people will want to have different kinds of files in their composition templates in different folders. This is just an example of the files that I find very useful to have. It's a good idea to have an alias folder, because if you need to get to other files that are related to this project, you can just drag and drop aliases here and you'll know where to find these things. Communication and correspondence, you might be given resources by other people. You might want to print out email messages to PDF files and save them here. The elements file, you'll see that essentially this contains a content specification, the title of the document, the thesis, the argument, the summary, key concepts, topics, examples, and references. Now, this leads us into a discussion of Omni Outliner because outliners are one of the best ways to do your thinking and planning for knowledge building projects. It is often very helpful to draw figures as a way of reasoning, concept maps or whatever. So there's a figures directory here, and there's a blank OmniGraffle template file if you happen to use OmniGraffle, which is a very handy graphics program. With this template in place, you can very quickly start to draw for your project. Double click on the file and you're ready to draw. Notice that this file actually didn't get renamed because it was in a subfolder. So if I want to rename this here, give it a sensible name, there we go. And that is done. I personally write in Markdown, as do many people on the web. So there's a Markdown file here. But if you write in Microsoft Word or some other, that file would be right there. It's often very useful to outline before you write. We know this. And Omni Outliner is probably the most powerful outliner available for the Mac. So it's a great tool for that. So we've got ourselves a good outline here, and I'll discuss that in more details later. There's also a blank plan file that I will talk about. The plan file contains information for planning that you can't easily represent in OmniFocus, such as the rationale of the project, its objectives, its constraints, decisions, and knowledge gaps. The other planning information you would represent, we recommend in a personal project management app such as OmniFocus or Things. Now, it's also useful to keep track of previous information sometimes, so you can throw it here or just rely on a time machine. Resources and research. We'll see later that if you come across interesting PDF files, then you can stash them in this directory here, or remember that I mentioned that you can have aliases to these PDF files if they reside somewhere else on your system. If you receive reviews and comments from other people, then you would put them in this folder here. I've got this Scratchpad file here, which is basically a file that in which you just have ad lib raw notes, call it what you will. And that's in Omni Outliner because that allows me to structure these files in a hierarchical fashion, so I get all the full advantages of Omni Outliner. As I'm writing, personally, I use this little tidbits file here, which contains any text that is not in the main draft that I want to pull out of the draft, and I just put them in this markdown file here. So that's one way to do it. I also tend to keep a separate file for the title of the document, and that tends to change as well. That's something you can store in the elements, but if you're writing in WordPress, you want quick access to the title because that's an element that you'll be putting into WordPress. Now, in a future screencast, we will delve into the various components of this template. Notice that by using a template like this, you can very quickly start your knowledge building project. This is very consistent with the literature on expertise that shows that experts use schemas to quickly execute tasks in a high quality manner. And it's also a characteristic of successful organizations to perfect and then standardize their processes.